All right, welcome back to AM Live. And we're just going to take a look at a couple of the stories which have been highlighted on the front pages. Beginning with this one, which is on the front, which was highlighted on the front page of the Daily Nation, as well as on the Star. And MPs seek to block counties from charging high levies. If proposed law is enacted, National Treasury will determine how devolved units impose taxes, issue waivers and exemptions. And I'm just going to read from my hard copy because that font on my screen is a little small for some of us short-sighted people. But the county government's revenue raising process bill 2023, sponsored by Kikuyu MP Kimani Ichung'wah, the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, on behalf of the national government, seeks to empower the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary to regulate the process by which county governments impose taxes, fees, levies and other charges. The bill, currently before the National Assembly, has already drawn mixed reactions from the Council of Governors, senators, especially the proposal to have KRA collect taxes for the counties and why it was not first introduced in the Senate. Annabelle, behind the scenes, had already raised that issue. But I will start with your thoughts on the subject, Wanjiru. You know, we tell county governments all the time that they need to generate their own revenue. They cannot rely on the allocations from the national government, which many times are delayed as far as disbursement is concerned, or, you know, release of the funds to the county governments. Is this not a good thing? No, sorry. So, wait, I think the question should be the other way around. So why would, because this says mixed reactions, why would people oppose this? Why would somebody propose this if they intend for the county governments to generate their own revenue?
I understand and I agree with the mixed reactions of it, because on one hand, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing that the citizens are taxed already by KRA, like very, very heavily. And so now when you put pressure on the county governments to have their own levies and to have very high levies, it's still the same citizens who are going to be paying these taxes and paying these fees and levies. So it becomes unfair, on the citizens. On the other hand, if the national government is making this decision, then it's sort of it compromises the independence of the county government. So now the county governments have to depend on Treasury, and now we are no longer devolving, but we are almost going back to what we were before, and we're not really strengthening the devolution process. I believe in devolution, but then at the same time, Punda atakufa. It's not even about even dying. It's now like you're being taxed heavily everywhere you turn. And then my question is also, where do these levies go? Are we seeing an improvement in healthcare? Are we seeing an improvement in the state of our roads? Are we seeing improvement in education levels where the county is responsible for? If we were seeing these services, then we would not have a problem with these kinds of levies and fees. But if we are not seeing that, all we are hearing is corruption scandals, someone has stolen money, someone has grabbed I don't know what, then it truly doesn't make sense to me. So I'm a bit mixed on this, but I wish that this was a bill that was introduced at the Senate as opposed to the national government, if it was a recommendation from the Senate and not from the national government. So that would be a completely different story. So I'm leaning more on, please don't tax people, like please be reasonable in the fees and the levies, unless you can show where this money is going. Are we, especially healthcare, I'm very serious about it because healthcare is largely devolved. It's too much. As a Kenyan, I'm just like, it's too much. Like, at what point are they, are we going to, catch a break with regards to fees and levies and taxes and the very, very high cost of living? Okay. Yeah. So, Annabelle, Wanjiru says, she's got somewhere in the middle, One, she says, Punda hajachoka. If we allow counties to impose levies and taxes at will, Punda atakufa. On the other hand, she says there is that concern that this could be a clawback on independence of county governments if we require them to seek approval on some aspects of their operations from the national government.
So, Olive, I'm going to refer you to a tweet by Martin Njunge from 4 days ago. His handle is @_ capital M _
that one. So, @_
capital M, and then _ capital N.
Okay, one quick second.
Capital N for no.
Don't worry, we'll get there. Don't give up.
Okay. And then JUNGE.
Okay.
And he was talking about how...
Yes, so, 4 days ago.
Yeah. So he deals in tiles, basically ceramics. So tiles, fitting the toilet bowls in your house and what have you. So he had goods moving. I don't know whether they were moving from Machakos or they were moving from Mombasa coming now this sides. So his truck was arrested at a river Machakos. And because it was arrested because he did not have an annual sticker, which costs 2,500. Now, instead of them just, you know, collecting that 2,500 from his driver, they arrested the driver, took him to the county office, charged 25,200 as penalty. So he paid 25,200 as penalty, plus the 2,500 for that sticker.
So this is this receipt from the Embu?
No, that's on Machakos.
Oh, this is Machakos.
He then gets to Embu. So that is another county.
Yes.
That also has their own, you know, regulatory framework.
Yes.
And they also say, you also don't have this issued by county government of Embu. And by the time he's done dealing with them, he has a bill of 108,000. Now, this is a Kenyan youth, by the way. He's a young person. This is a Kenyan youth trying to conduct business, because we've had a government that has told young people, okay, listen here guys, unemployment is a problem. We are trying to do what we can to get you jobs, but in the meantime, explore biashara, explore entrepreneurship. He is following government's advice. But at the same time, it becomes really difficult for his business to thrive if, one, there's already the taxes that he pays to the Kenya Revenue Authority. And then in addition to that, there's probably what he had paid in Mombasa County, assuming that is where the goods originated. Then there's what he has paid to Machakos County. Then there's what he has paid to Embu County. Now, these goods, whether or not they are going to his hardware, assuming they're even being delivered to or live in Embu County, what profit has this guy made? Has he even broken even, or has he operated at a loss? Now, this bill, from what I can see here, had been deliberated on by the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, IBEC, which I believe is under the office of the Deputy President. And from what I am seeing here, the Council of Governors chairperson, Ms. Anne Waiguru, is not opposed to the bill. She's actually agreeing we need to have a framework harmonizing all these things. We can't be having Annabelle paying taxes through all these counties. It will not make sense. I might as well just shut down the business. The only issue that is being raised here is that they had agreed at the IBEC stage that this bill would be introduced through the Senate, because Senate now oversights the counties, and then now it will proceed to National Assembly. Now, that is now a procedural technicality. But does this issue need addressing? Yes. It does need addressing. Now, you raise the issue of, we're always telling counties, you figure out how to raise your money. I like, and I said this when we were behind the scenes, we have this habit of, whenever KRA or other Treasury is reading the budget and they increase taxes, we are like, you can't tax a nation to prosperity. Now, I want to ask, what makes a county think they are going to count, you know, to tax their residents and business community to prosperity? In the same way, we do not only rely on our taxes at national level to meet our budgetary expenditure. Some of that money comes through government-to-government partnerships, monies or grants from development partners, and there is nothing, there is no law that stops county governments from getting into similar arrangements. The only issue is that, even if, say, Kisumu County today gets into a partnership with the government of Denmark, that money has to be channeled through National Treasury, but in National Treasury's kitty, it will be specifically identified to belong to Kisumu County. So can they get creative? Immediately these people assumed office, we saw Governor Keheka, Susan, and I believe Governor Anyang' Nyong'o traveling to, was it Netherlands? Yeah? To just go and have meetings, because they're trying to address the water and sanitation issue in their counties. So they had gone to have meetings with partners there, see whether they can get funding from the projects. There is nothing stopping other counties from doing that. So let them get creative. Hii kitu ya kushinda unanifinya. If I can't pay rent for my business premises, then I can't generate an income, obviously. I am not going to be able to put food on my table. I agree with what the Honorable Njeri was saying here. Punda atakufa. You might as well just kill this donkey, you know? Just kill this donkey. It's bad.
Annabelle, are you sure you're not a shareholder in this Martin Junge style of business?
I'm not. I just saw it over the weekend, and I was like, 108,000.
Just to get through one county.
That's ludicrous. That's ludicrous. Tax, if you're fining them, please let counties also adopt this mechanism. Fine them on the spot. Collect your 1,000, collect your 2,500. This thing of impounding, because the reason why this thing came to 108,000, you've taken them to your county premises. Now, you charge for the number of days that vehicle is there. So that tires are not stolen and other parts of the vehicle. They charge. That is why that thing is coming to 108,000. Is that how you're going to generate an income? Okay. By frustrating people? La, no.
All right, for those just joining us, this was the what do we call it, case reference presented by Annabelle, and she's shared Martin Njunge's experience. My truck was arrested at Athi River, Machakos, because I didn't have an annual sticker, which cost 2,500. Upon that, instead of letting me comply with the county policy and pay the 2,500, they forced the driver forced the driver to their county office and charged him 25,200 more as penalty. My vehicle went there for the first time, probably the last. Now total is 27,200. I went there to negotiate with them and we agreed on 15,000 shillings. They kept the truck there from morning with client goods, which was supposed to go to Embu. And and then he goes on to post a receipt, an invoice from the Embu County government for 108,426. So essentially what we're looking at is this proposed bill by the national government. And some portions of it have been highlighted from Annabelle that I hadn't looked at. And to actualize this, the bill seeks to, quick second. The bill defines the manner in which the national government, through the National Treasury, may exercise its policy oversight role, and establishes the process whereby the county governments may exercise their taxation authority. To actualize this, the bill seeks to establish an interagency transitional committee led by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury, with the mandate of reviewing all fees and charges proposed by the county governments once the bill becomes a law. And moving on down, Anne Waiguru, the COG chairperson and Kirinyaga governor, welcomed the bill, but she has a problem with appointing KRA as the collector of taxes. She's quoted as saying the bill is good as it seeks to regulate the process of counties imposing charges, the process of issuing waivers and exemptions, and to ensure the taxes imposed by a county do not prejudice one another. However, there are clauses that will need to be amended, such as allowing KRA as a collector. She knows that it was agreed during the 19th ordinary session of the Intergovernmental Budget and Economic Council, chaired by the Deputy President, that the bill be introduced in the Senate, as it is a bill concerning counties, wondering why it was introduced in the National Assembly. Jerry, are we clawing back on devolution by giving national government such powers to oversight? And two, or are you of the opinion, as you are quoted, Punda amechoka?
I think, Olive, I've already been quoted behind the scenes, so it would be improper of me to imply otherwise. And I think Annabelle is not giving us full disclosure. I think she has some some shares in that biashara.
I'm also suspecting.
She should tell us. Olive county governments do not exist in full autonomy of the national government. They're semi-autonomous and they have to work in line with the national government. And there is, I remember when the 2010 constitution was being chaperoned, and I was in law school at the time, and we had a discussion with my contract lecturer in regard to county governments. And most of the times they go unchecked. Senate is supposed to oversight county governments, but you find that they do not even have an oversight fund to ensure that they meet their mandate. When you come to county members of the assembly, you find that most of them do not have. I don't want to put it in terms that would be a bit improper. They are sort of they're sort of allied to the governors. because most of the time the governors are the ones dishing out the goodies. If I recall, they had proposed that the National Assembly introduces a bill that will apportion or give them a development fund. They do not have a kitty themselves. So at the end of the day, they are at the beck and call of the governor. They have to beg to the governor. So you find that they're not able to really actualize their oversight role, because if they actualize it, then they will be de-whipped by the executive. So county governments are largely unchecked, and only if we continue this way, I believe at some point we have to have that conversation, because we devolved critical services like healthcare, and just go around the counties and collect the views of majority of the residents, and you will find that healthcare is failing at the county level. You find even basic amenities like Panadol, like gloves, you're being told to go buy outside of the hospital. So at the end of the day, we need to have this discussion, and who will rein in on the county governments. So taxing the residents, overtaxing the Kenyan is not going to help us at all. And you find that most of the time, the regular person is already paying, like my counterparts have said, to KRA. And then the county government is here pushing them again. And at the end of the day, if the donkey dies, we have to feed the donkey well. The donkey has to be looked after, because the donkey dies or live. I mean, we are all in trouble. So I believe that this bill is timely. Perhaps maybe there's a discussion of whether it should have been raised at the Senate or at our level. But at the end of the day, that is a discussion that we can have. And I believe that we should not overtax the Kenyan populace, and county governments need to be reined on.
All right. We've been joined by the Migori woman rep. Good morning. Her name is Fatma Zainab Mohammed. I'm curious what you make of this proposal. Do you agree that there is a need to coordinate the levies imposed by the by the counties, especially for those moving? I'm seeing a paragraph here that this includes cess fees that counties impose on goods like livestock on transit, sand, building stones, maram and soil, and in the case study presented by Annabelle Tiles, do you agree that there needs to be some sort of coordination, but also should it be the Cabinet Secretary Treasury who takes on that role?
First of all, I believe that we are in a devolved government where the counties should stand as their own government. So when we start putting so much national nose into the county government, I think then we are trying to say the governor is toothless and the minister is superior. So I think as much as they're bringing this up, they also need to consider that who is the boss down there. That is very important. Otherwise, we'll have no reason then to elect a governor if the county cannot stand on their own. Of course, we do need the national government to come in and assist, but they should not overrun the county government. And just to pick on what my sister here mentioned, that the counties are failing, and especially the health sector. The health sector is not failing because the counties are not doing their part. The health sector, amongst others that are failing, it's because the national government is not releasing funds. They're supposed to give them funds so that they buy the Panadol that she's talking about. But the national government has its own priorities. So we will blame the county and say, look, you're even failing in the health sector, so we can't leave this to you. But who is failing them? It's the national government. So I believe as much as they want to bring this, it's a good idea. But they need to sit down with the county government and listen to them instead of bossing them. That's my opinion.
All right. And speaking of health in the counties, we saw healthcare workers say they will be unable to go to work beginning tomorrow for lack of funds, delayed salaries and such. But I'll move us along to the topic of conversation. This morning, has there been public buy-in where the bipartisan talks are concerned? Page 5 of the Daily Nation. Talks team has 90 days to file report on IEBC reforms. Rival coalitions now allowed to engage experts and other technical resource persons. The same has been highlighted on ending the Taifa Leo as well. Let me start with Wanjiru. In your view, broadly speaking, before we get now into the technical aspects of this conversation, has there been, in your view, public buy-in into these bipartisan talks that kick off today?
I will begin by by commenting on the 8 million plus, around 8 million people who did not vote for either of these parties, and I fear that they may have been right. Like, you know what I mean? Like the lack displaying and communicating the lack of faith in the leadership that was, that was presented on both sides. And sometimes I think about it and I say, after these 5 years, it's going to be worse. I might be among the 10 million plus people who might not vote because of the lack of faith in the leadership that we're seeing. Do these talks have a public buy-in? There are many conversations that we need to have as a country. We need to have conversation on electoral integrity. It is true that we need to have conversations about that. It is also true that we need to have conversations on the cost of living, but not as a by the way and not as something that you use to emotionally charge your crowd, but because you genuinely care about the status and about the life of the people that you purport to present. We also do need to have a conversation on the integrity on Chapter 6 of the Constitution and the leaders that we're seeing on both sides. So, and I also genuinely support the idea of democratic headaches. We need people who are going to agitate for things. We need people who are going to agitate for the government of the day to do what they need to do for the people. Because, you know, the Constitution says that all sovereign power belongs to the people. And so if we're going to have these talks, are the people being centered in these conversations? Are our lives being centered in these conversations? Are young people's lives being centered in these conversations? Are we having conversations about security in the country? Are we having conversations about what does faith in our public institution look like? Are we taking into account the fact that our trust levels as a country are very low? I am not seeing that. I'm seeing more personal than, than representative kind of dialogue. But yeah, me as the public, myself personally, I'm squinting. I'm just like,
Side eye.
Major side eye.
You said you used an interesting phrase there. Did you say we need democratic headaches?
We do need democratic headaches, but democratic headaches that center the people, that center the young people, that center what does it mean to be a Kenyan citizen. I wish that the talks were to begin on this is what I imagine a Kenyan citizen deserves, in this country. But yeah, anyway.
So there's a place for Sumbuas.
There's a place
where
for
democracy is concerned.
There's a place, and I support Sumbuas, but then I support Sumbuas that center the people, and you can actually see where the people have been centered and where personal interests have been centered. I'm giving major
side eye.
Side eye.
Annabelle, where do you stand? Is this about negotiating power, or is this truly about the people?
Currently, as we stand this morning, it is about negotiating power, because the government of the day needs to run its operations.
Yes.
And it is in their best interest if they can do it with very little inconvenience. They are already inconvenienced by the global situation, the regional situation, the economic situation in the country. They already have those inconveniences. They don't need another inconvenience here exacerbating that situation. So I feel for Kenya Kwanza, of which I am a member, is hell-bent on calming down the situation, and it is a wise move. On the other hand, for Azimio, for them it is purely power brokering. Let us not lie to each other. What they're looking for is I don't know, relevance, feeling that they have a seat at the table of, where they get to make decisions, which I don't understand, because you already have representatives in the various houses we have in this country, from county assemblies to Senate to National Assembly. Now, where do I sit in this issue? I've been here before, and I've given you the example of how when you're having a mob or a mass of people, they tend to adopt the demeanor of their leader. And I gave the example of Mahatma Gandhi, and I gave the example of Malcolm X. Mahatma Gandhi was just calm demeanor, and naturally anybody who associated with him or the people who followed him adopted that demeanor. Malcolm X had times when, he would be at a table like this, things are calm. But if Malcolm X decides, but now we're wasting time here, he goes extreme end of the scale and his people follow. The other thing I have said here, I think I was with Kitili on front and center, was we have very clearly issues that consistently keep coming up in this country. And I said that the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto is founded on, I think, sessional paper number 3 or number 6 of 1983. And the context that that session of paper was talking about was from 1967, where Kenya had experienced an economic scenario similar to what we're experiencing now. We're having issues of unemployment now. We had issues of unemployment then. We're talking about Kenya becoming a production instead of a consumer nation. Those issues were being raised then. That sessional paper was projecting that, you know, we would have this many more Kenyans come the year 2000. The jobs that we have currently will not be able to handle those numbers. So we need to start planning so that we don't have an issue of unemployment come that time. Between the development of that sessional paper in 2000, I don't know what happened with implementation, because clearly something must have gone wrong, which is why we're dealing with the rate of unemployment that we're dealing with now. After that, move from that era we're projecting to 2000, comes National Accord of 2008. And again, it started with a political and national crisis. That was the context of 2007-2008. But when they went to have that discussion, when they went to have the dialogue, it went beyond the political differences. Again, what issues started coming up? Equitable sharing of resources, unemployment, hence how we ended up with our current Kenyan constitution. Comes BBI, raises issues similar to what was being raised in 2007, 2008. So the question here becomes, is it that the issue is not that we don't know our issues. They are very well enumerated and they keep coming up, so we know what the issues are. Is it that solutions are floated piecemeal, or the solutions were actually adequate and now we fail in the implementation? Because these solutions that are being proposed need certain mechanisms to be put in place so that they can be fully realized, and then we as the people can enjoy the benefits. So is that where we're lapsing, or are the solutions that are proposed piecemeal, like I said, or compromised? Now, the constitution we have as currently was not the Bomas draft. The Bomas draft never had 47 counties. The Bomas draft was talking about the 8 regions. And there's now a whole other conversation as to whether it was better to go with the 8 regions as opposed to the 47 counties. That is a discussion for another day. But there was a general feeling amongst the developers of that Bomas draft that when that thing went to Naivasha, it was butchered. Na tukaambiwa msijali, tutapitisha, alafu tutafanya nini? Tutarekebisha.
Your 80-20.
Yes.
The compromise.
It was never rekebishwad. That is why that failing to rekebisha is how we ended up with BBI. Is why we're ending up now with the Honorable Mwangi Kionjori calling for national dialogue. He was saying we need to bring everybody to the table. If it means we go to Bomas, we go to Bomas. Get political representatives, get religious representatives, get representatives from civil society, get representatives from, I don't know, the Kenyan business community. Bring everybody to the table and let us have an honest conversation as Kenya. From where I sit, I am not seeing an honest conversation here, because I would want to disagree with Wanjiru on this point. Even those 8 million Kenyans who did not vote, they live in counties, they live in constituencies, do they not? Whether or not you voted, if you live in Mombasa County, your county has a governor. Whether or not you voted for them, they are your governor, they speak for you, they represent you. You have a member of parliament, depending on whatever constituency you come from. So if we were really serious about having an honest conversation, these two factions, when they sit down today, they're supposed to develop a skeleton or a framework that is going to guide these talks. Number one should entail all these members of parliament, regardless of whether you're in that committee or not, all of you, going back to your constituencies and collecting honest views from the people you represent. Then those views are going to be consolidated into a document that is now going to be brought before these two committees, or these two representative committees, to deliberate on. If we are not having that, we are lying to one another. Because how are you purporting to go and speak on behalf of Annabelle, and you have not come back to Kabete constituency and asked Annabelle, by the way, what is hurting you as a Kenyan living in Kabete? The other thing is, we are having people who are not honest. As Emio is saying, we have selected a committee, we will come to the table. But at the same time, they're telling government, now by the way, we will go to the streets. So we will be there purporting to have an honest conversation, and we will be fingering you from this end. They had told us, as they're having those talks, they're going to have public barazas. What I saw on Sunday, when they went to Eastlands, was not a public baraza. I expected residents of Eastlands to be seated in a hall giving views. What we had was the equivalent of a political rally. Basically, Martha Karua, Raila Odinga, and their proponents standing on a podium and regurgitating what they have been saying over and over again. How I wish they would have still had that setting, but they have representatives from women chamas, from youth chamas, dinini, coming onto that podium and saying, mimi as a young person in Kenya, hizo ndio vitu zinaniuma. Mkienda hizo bipartisan talks, I would appreciate if you would talk about 1 to 3 to address my issue. So sahi hapana, no. No, and I am especially upset. I am especially upset with Azimio. They are taking us for fools. Okay. At this point in time.
At this point in time.
Yes.
Lots of things have come up, including I had a question around are there parallels in terms of, for example, with BBI, the issue was who was the owner of the process. Are the people the owners of this particular process? But we'll come to that. Just your views, Jerry, before I go to Zainab, on is this about the people? Because Annabelle has rightly stated, we have issues. There are issues we need to resolve. So several questions arise. Is this the best way to tackle them? But before you answer that one, tell me, is this about the people or is this about, to quote Annabelle, brokering of power?
We keep having these conversations, Olive. But I think they are conversations which are not driven from a point of, you know, being genuine and having genuine concerns for Kenyans, which is why we have the Ndungu report. We have all these reports that have never been acted on because they're driven from a point of, you know, clamor for power and everyone wanting a piece of the cake. And I always ask a very simple question. When Raila Odinga joined the former government of Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, why did he not complain about the cost of living? Why did he not raise issues about high unemployment, you know, the cost of basic commodities? Why was it not a conversation at that point? So if you're telling me that right now he has suddenly discovered that, you know, nearly or barely 1 year into the presidency of William Samoei Ruto, that, oh, the cost of unga has actually gone up and it's actually gone down with a few shillings. But at the end of the day, Olive, as long as we do not have these conversations that centers around Kenyans, we will never achieve what the common mwananchi wants. And as clear as day, this is not a conversation about the common mwananchi. It is not about Wanjiku. It is about people brokering power, like Annabelle has said. And you find that I was in the committee that sat to remove the Cherera 4, as they are famously called by the media. And from there, of course, we had issues. And the president, because at the end of the day, the buck stops to the president. If Kenya fails, it is William Samoei Ruto who's going to be blamed. Raila Amolo Odinga has absolutely nothing to lose. He lost what he wanted. He lost the presidency. And he can go to any lengths to ensure that he has a seat at the table. And if this was about Mwananchi, we would be having a real conversation about issues that concern Mwananchi. IEBC is of course about 2027, who will be sitting on that commission, who will be the one who is perhaps maybe, as people say, calling the shots. And that is why it is a priority for Raila Amolo Odinga and not the cost of commodities. And Olive, I think we always say that perhaps we want to rethink and question whether it is our system that has an issue, because Article 1 of the Constitution connotes sovereignty of the people, and it is exercised when people go to vote. And that is democracy. It has a cost. It has a winner. It has a loser. And in the last election, if you remember, Biden won and Trump lost. And Trump is not there saying, oh, look, I'm going to go to the streets and you have to actually, you know, work according to my formula or implement my manifesto. And that is what Azimio or Raila Amolo Odinga raises all the time. And we have a pattern. We have seen once he gets what he wants, he goes quietly and folds, and there's no issue about the cost of commodities or the high unemployment rates, which continue to plague Kenyans. So let us not lie to ourselves. We have a cost to pay for democracy. We went to the elections, we voted, and it is unfortunate that my colleague says that she would rather not vote, because at the end of the day, like Annabelle has said, we have consequences. The president, whatever happens in this nation, as long as you're in Kenya, you will bear the consequences of that. And imagine if the 8 million voted, you know, what would we have had? Because we exercise our voices by voting. By withholding our votes, perhaps we deny everyone the feel of change, and change that is driven by the people. So Olive, for me, this is not a conversation about the Wanjiku. This is a conversation about people who want to be in power. And as long as we keep this trend, I don't think the local Kenyan will ever really benefit from these conversations.
To be fair, Jerry, to be fair, Azimio wanted to expand the scope of this conversation beyond the reconstitution of IEBC. Kenya Kwanza said, that is what we agreed we are discussing. 2, Raila Odinga said, why can we not approach this the same way we approached the National Accord? Kenya Kwanza said, this conversation must happen within the confines of the Constitution. So whose fault is it that this conversation now does not include or does not represent? Because Annabelle said you need to come back to us and ask us. Why can't representatives, other representatives of Kenyans beyond the MPs take part in this conversation? Because Kenya Kwanza said, must take place in Parliament.
Olive, the National Accord gave birth to what? To the unpopular handshake. Is that what we wanted for the Kenya Kwanza government? Absolutely not. Like I've said, we have a cause for democracy. We went to elections. The election was challenged. We have a validly elected president, and that is William Samoei Ruto. So that is why we narrowed the conversation to reforms.
But are you denying that there are issues that perennially, you've agreed, both of you at least on that, there are issues that perennially come up that require to be addressed? So why not broaden the conversation? Include more people, get more people on board, and actually identify the issues, because Annabelle says we know them, we can enumerate them.
But the issues are known, Olive. They have been identified. They do not need to be identified. The issue is that we never implement. And that is why I've said we have many reports that have never been acted on, because the conversation is not really about Wanjiku. It is about people brokering power and getting into government. And once they get into government, then it just goes on a shutdown.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Zainab, what's your view? I know you were elected on an independent, you were elected as an independent, but I did see an image of you in jungle green, somewhere on top of a vehicle.
Yes, true, that was me.
That was you. So what's your position on this issue?
First of all, I want to tell you that as much as I was elected as independent candidate, I was in the center position. I had a choice to turn right or turn left. Meaning I could turn Kenya Kwanza, I could turn Azimio. And I watched from a distance. And I looked at Kenya Kwanza. I said, thanks God I'm independent. I have a choice to move where I think majority are. And so independently, I'm in Azimio. Because I have looked at this other side, and I feel so sad when I look at my sisters here, talking deep down their heart. They know what they're saying is not true. Let me start with the cost of living. And to be specific, I'll talk about the unga. Unga is not just expensive because there's shortage of maize. Life becomes expensive when the government is not doing the right thing. This government is measuring on minors. And even if you get us all the maize in this world and dump it in Kenya, the maize will still be expensive. The unga will still be expensive, because there are things that you need to look into before the unga gets into a packet and price it up. And that is what Kenya Kwanza is doing. They are saying that when Azimio went to the last rally they had, what does it mean to go back to Wananchi? It does not mean that Raila goes to Migori in Nyatika, where I come from, and he calls for, kujeni hapa tukae chini ya mti, udenade, unga ni pesa ngapi hapa, munaona tufanya aje, Raila rudi Nairobi. No, we were elected as leaders. We represent them. When I go back over the weekend home, in my baraza, I sit down and ask them, what's the issue? Oh, Fatuma, go back to Nairobi, because they know in my area they voted for Raila. So they believe that's their leader. They tell me, go back and tell Baba that unga is too expensive. I come back, I tell Baba Migori has said unga is expensive. Then Raila goes and speaks for the country now. So if you expect Ruto to go back to Sugoi and ask the Sugoi people, did I win fairly? The Sugoi people will say, I elected you. You know better if you won fairly. The bottom line here is, if you have the right government, voted by the majority of the people, then you won fairly. It is not just about winning, as they say, democratically elected. No, it is winning fairly and the other person losing fairly. The situation we are in is somebody won. The word ends by winning. Was it fair? It's not discussed. Did the other person lose fairly? It is not discussed. As long as the elections in Kenya remain as they are, which are not elections, these are selections and negotiations, because we believe that IBC negotiated with a candidate and the best bidder got it. And that's how we ended up having a president. Majority of Kenyans believe that. Now, if you want to prove this majority of Kenyans that this other person won fairly and this other one lost fairly, open the server. I won fairly. As a member of parliament, woman rep for Migori, I won fairly. There is no single day I've gone back to Migori and held a microphone and tell you people, si munajua nilishinda kwa ukweli kabisa, because they know. I don't have to tell them. And even my opponent knows that she lost fairly. She doesn't come for any rally to say, si munajua Fatuma alishinda kwa kuiba. No. So the thing is, so it's white and black. If you know you won fairly, open this server. And I'm telling you, a Kenyan will buy unga at 300 and said, anyway, I voted for this person. It was my mistake. I will have to live with unga at 300. But even if you bring unga at 100, and the majority of Kenyans still feel that this is not the person they elected, they will still say it's expensive. Even if you give for free, they will say the unga is free, but this unga is not the best, because they still believe there's somebody else would have gotten them a better unga. So with all sincerity, just open this server. And all these discussions will come to an end. Whether Raila wants to be a prime minister, whether he wants to be a governor, whether he wants to be a god, whatever you claim Raila wants to be, he has never said it. But I tell you, as young as you are, I could be older than all of you seated here. I want to tell you that what Raila is fighting for is not for him. He has lived his. He's now fighting for me, you, and our children. So don't look at him as him. Look at me. And that is why I'm in the war. I'm saying I want a free and fair election in the years to come. And I don't think I have the muscle to fight it, to get it there. I believe Raila has the techniques. He has the manpower. He has everything it takes that can help us get to a free and fair election in the near future. Because I aspire to be a governor. I aspire to be a president. I will not get there if the electoral system remains the same. So as much as you call Raila, 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 you see when Jesus came, he came to take you to heaven. And now everything that he said through Jesus, as Christians believe. So the majority of Kenyans are speaking through Raila. It is not, you see, Jesus already had the key to heaven, but he came to take other Christians with him to heaven. So right now we cannot talk of Jesus going to heaven. We talk about those people that he was leading to heaven. Here is Raila. He has walked his walk. He has reached where he wanted to reach. But I still believe that the child behind, like Fatuma wants to be a future president, will not get there if I don't correct this. He is correcting it for me, for your information, not for himself. The IBC story that they're talking about, I'm telling you, if we don't fix the IBC, there's no need for going for an election. In fact, I will be the first person to start campaigning not to be a women rep, but to tell wananchi it adds no value. Go to the shamba, palilia mahindi yako, forget about a government. Whoever comes in will come in through the back door. After all, it is for the rich. You cannot compare Kenyan election, Trump and the other candidate. Trump lost fairly. Though he made his noise, but you know, losing, I have lost before. You can never lose and say this guy beat me unless you're a gentleman. Most cases, even Trump made his noise and say this happened, he could not go to the streets because he knows deep down in his heart that with this system, I honestly lost. Maybe my priorities were not the priority of the Americans, and that's why I lost. And so he's preparing to come back, maybe, I don't know. So if we have a clean system, believe me, there's no single day that a Kenyan will claim unga is expensive, yet you voted for that person who has not made a policy to bring the unga down.
All right, so we need to take a break, but Wanjiru, I saw you wanting to comment, and I'll come to you as well as Anna. Even, oh goodness, well, when we come back, we'll take a break.
Your panel is Kenya Kwanza 3?
No,
it's okay. I can handle this. I can handle all this.
Wanjiru, we'll come back. We'll come back with you on the other side.
Okay.
We'll come back
my sister, you're here.
I'm not even as me. I'm the 8
so you have 2 Kenya Kwanza,
8 million.
one as in you and 8 million.
8 million. I have something to say about the 8 million.
All right, welcome back to AM Live. Before we took the break, several things came up. I'll start with you, Wanjiru. And then also, Annabelle, there was an issue that was raised by Fatma, and she was talking, which name? You know, somebody in Maya is telling me full network. Fatuma Full Network. So Fatma tells us that, Annabelle, that Mheshimiwa's MPs go to their constituents. That's why they sit between Tuesday and Thursday. The rest of the time, they go back to their constituents to get a sense of what are the issues. So she says, why you're telling them to now go back to the people she doesn't understand. And then, my question to you, Wanjiru, who is representing the 8 million majority who didn't vote, aside from apart from the question of is there public buy-in, has there been good faith where these talks are concerned from either side? And I ask that because Azimio has said once Ramadan has concluded, they will hold parallel maandamano to the talks.
Yeah.
Has there been, and then also Annabelle took issue, brought up the issue of, is this really a public baraza or a political rally? To be fair, even Kenya Kwanza and the interdenominational prayers, they are thinly veiled, to be honest, political meetings.
Yeah.
So has there been demonstrated good faith on either side?
When I began, when I began speaking, I talked about, me having a side eye. But even before I make that point, I'd just like to, because we're having a lot of conversations about elections, and elections are fantastic because that is where the democratic process begins. But the election is not the end or be all of a political process. This is an activity that takes them once in 5 years. And so what I would want to see are conversations on strengthening active public participation throughout the 5 years. And when I say I represent the 8 million, it's because even if you did not vote, you still have responsibility to participate in the next 5 years, democratically at the county level, at the budget process, all these things. And so if these conversations were really, really as honest as we would all want them to be, we would be seeing efforts to not mobilizing people to go to the streets, but mobilizing communities to actively participate in governance, to actively participate in the things that matter to them. And this is what I would like to see. I would like to see a conversation on public participation bills which sit in Parliament for so long, because are we really interested in how people participate in democratic processes, or are we interested in whether we get voted or not, in whether the elections were fair or not? It's important that the elections are fair. It's important that we have an IBC that is truly independent, but also what are the political conversations we are having, and what are the political conversations we are enabling if we are focusing too much on the voting and very little on the actual governing of a country, very little on the actual governing at the county level, very little on what as citizens, what do we do once we have voted, what then happens? Because life is going on. There's going to be mandamano, but life will still go on. The counties are going to make decisions. Now they are doing an entire budget process has just begun. Does the public know this? Do we understand what is really going on? And so for me, I would like to see the conversation expanded from the actual voting into the actual governance. And I'm not seeing a lot of conversations on the actual governance, which is where, the real politics actually happens. And that is what I wanted to say in relation to everything that is going on about the elections, and why the elections are very emotive is because we focus on the actual process of voting, but little is paid attention to the actual governance and what people get from the governance process for the next, 5 years.
Okay,
that is what I wanted to clarify. Yeah.
And Annabelle, well, I'll invite you to also respond to what Fatma submitted. I also want you to respond to this. With the BBI, one of the biggest issues was who was the owner of the process. In this case, is it a situation where Kenyans are like, if it keeps people off the streets, I can go about my business, I can move on, because Wanjiru rightly said, life is moving on, right? If it allow me to move on, then let them sit and talk.
One, BBI was going to take us through the route of amending the constitution, basically referendum. With the history we have in this country with regards to mutilation of constitution, that was what, the 1982 constitution? By the time we were amending that document, it had been seriously manipulated. Kenyans would go to sleep, you wake up in the morning, you find this section of the constitution was amended. You go to sleep again, you wake up the next morning, I don't know, another section has been amended. You do not do that to the document that is the foundation of the laws of a nation. You are playing with the lives of too many people, like too many things are at stake. Starting from the lives of your citizens, followed by, relations with your neighbors within the region, interactions with, now global states. You're messing up with a lot of things. And you risk plunging the country into crisis. So there was no way, and that is why our constitution is currently structured in the way that it is. For you to then now purport to go the route they were trying to take with BBI was a mockery of what people went through in Bomas to give us what we have today. You had the likes of Anjogu. We enjoy Article 50 in that constitution because of the likes of Anjogu, who was properly brutalized by our police, locked in the cell for I don't know how many days. And that's why you're told, that's why we have bail and bond, mtu atashikwa, you read them their rights. And we didn't have rights of an arrested person. We got them because of that. She was number 100 in Bomas. You cannot then come and try and make a sham. Like I said, these issues keep recurring. Even when we were promulgating the constitution, there are those who are feeling like, when we wanted chungwa, nini, ndizi, guys said, okay, just let's pass this thing, but we will revisit it. The fact that it has never been revisited speaks to now, this questions I am asking, where is our spirit as a people? How committed are we to these processes? Because soon after promulgating it, say, okay, give 12 months, you operate, whoever is in office. But then now come back to the table and tell guys, now you know, we promised Kenyans, at least the ones who are saying no, that we would look at the issues that they had an issue with pertaining to this document. So can we have the conversation? Now you decide, do we go back to Bomas or do we constitute a committee and then go to Bomas? So we're going to be telling them, this is what we have for you, these are the proposals, now give us your views. So that is where BBI failed. People actually agree the issues raised in BBI are valid. It is just the process that they had a problem with. So there's nothing that stops us from revisiting it, whether we are still going to call it Building Bridges Initiative or we are going to assign it a different name. But a conversation needs to be had pertaining to that document because it is not an issue that is being raised now. It has been there from the onset, before we even adopted it. The second thing I want to take up with Mheshimiwa Fatuma, she alleged, and this is part of the problems that I have with us as a country. We are unable to look at each other beyond the lens of our affiliation. So if I belong to tribe X, then I will profile you a certain way because you belong to tribe Y. If I belong to party X, then I am unable to look at you objectively because you belong to party Z. I find that really a mockery. So for her to say that Njeri and I are not being honest, and then proceeds right after to say that open the servers and these problems will go away. Who's being dishonest? Now, let us say even those servers are opened today. A forensic audit is conducted on them for the next 2 months. Let's even say the outcome is that Raila won and he has to assume office as president. Now, immediately he has assumed office and he reports to his station the next day. Does the cost of electricity automatically come down? Does the cost of unga automatically come down? Does the cost of fuel in this country automatically come down? Do the effects we have experienced as a result of the drought we have been having automatically become reversed? And that's why I'm saying we need to have honest conversations with ourselves as a country, because I fail to understand why people in this country can be dying kwa sababu tuko na kiangazi. We're experiencing a drought. And then shortly after we have rains, and the same people are again dying together with their livestock because now the rain is overwhelming. What stops us from putting mechanisms in place to just solve these problems once and for all? When we're having that drought, we have amazing technology nowadays, from even the one that has stood the test of time, just silos. Forget everything else that is advanced after silos, just silos alone. When we know, okay, our projections are looking like this, or just in the event that, God forbid, the next season is not promising, let us always make sure we have this much in storage, so that in the event that we have a drought, we're able to cater to our population. What we have had with Kenya National Cereals and Produce Board, I don't think their storage mechanism has been expanding over the years. Kenya's population is growing, but the machinery is still the same. It is not growing in comparison to the population. So you're still storing cereals, but are the cereals enough to take Kenyans for even a period of 6 months? Were we to experience what we were experiencing? I would say no, because then if they had capacity, why was government struggling to feed Kenyans the way it was struggling? So when I say we are being taken for fools in this process, or Kenyans are being taken for fools, it is true. The other thing she has said is that we don't need as members of parliament to go back to the people, because we interact with them on this and this days, and therefore we get to hear their issues. And it is on that basis that we're telling our leader, these are our issues. Thank you very much. In what capacity? Member of parliament. What avenue do you have as a member of parliament? Is it not the National Assembly? So why don't we, and I've said this again before on NTV, we can even retrieve the clips on Front and Center. Why don't we, as members of parliament, explore that avenue first? We're expecting power plays, of course, because I have more numbers than you and da-da-da-da-da. That one is going to feature. But explore that avenue that we have given to you as citizens of Kenya. Then, if it fails, explore now taking us to bomb us or taking to the streets. But I find it very insulting as a citizen of this country for a person elected to represent Kenyans coming to tell us turushe mawe na hajatumia zile tools tumempatia yeye mwenyewe kama mbunge. You're making a mockery of us. I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you.
Let her just interject.
I did not
then I'll
interrupt
come back to you, Annabelle.
Be courteous.
A leader telling others to rusha mawe. That one take note, and she needs to explain to us who this member is, because I will go personally to attack that member.
Okay.
So, you cannot do such things. You don't come and tell us, oh, let's take to the streets. Why are we taking to the streets? First, exhaust everything that you have within your power as a member of parliament. Then come and tell us it has failed. Because for as long as you've not done that, you're not serving your purpose. And for a very long time, members of parliament have been running from their mandate. Their mandate is very simple, and it is very well enumerated in the constitution. Number one, it is to present national issues there, so that Njeri is elected by people from Kirinyaga County. But once Njeri sits in that house, she does not only speak for the people of Kirinyaga, she speaks for all Kenyans. That is why it is called a National Assembly. The other thing is, she mentioned, I remember when she was talking, is that they have a kitty. Senators don't have a kitty. I am actually one of the proponents who agree with the court decision that said, let's do away with CDF. CDF is enabling members of parliament not to discharge their mandate, because you fail to deliberate on issues in parliament, you fail to table issues of the people in parliament, you fail to engage with executive to lobby for issues in your constituencies to be resolved, and then you go and hoodwink your constituents with, oh, unajua tumerefurbish shule with CDF kitty. Oh, unajua tumewaekea hii tank na CDF kitty. That is not your primary function. That is a secondary function. Execute your primary function. So with this problem, can we attempt for the first time in this country to have an objective discussion in the National Assembly? The rest of us, Law Society of Kenya, Kina Wanjiro and their CBOs and what have you, we will write our memorandums, we will table before Parliament. If they are not considered, we have never shied away to come back and tell members of the public, this is what we presented. In fact, even at the point of tabling it, of taking it to Parliament for filing, we actually come back and say, today we have presented this to National Assembly. So come back, and if you deliberate on what we have said, and then now come back to us as Kenyans with a comprehensive document, having factored both our opinions from both sides of the divide, and now the religious members and us guys, and we have a conversation from that point onwards. Otherwise, this other business, na. And there's a question also Wanjiro asked, and I agree with it. When we talk about winning and losing, and again, today it seems I'm just regurgitating things I have said here before. We're a very competitive nation. From even our school setting to what have you, we're very competitive. And therefore, when people lose elections, it's very painful. But we are a nation that is supposed to respect the law. We have mechanisms that say, if you feel displeased with how your election was handled, this is a mechanism you follow. It is not absolute. The beauty I like especially about our presidential election petitions is that every time they're taken to court, they pick out flaws in the process that now give us an opportunity to seal more holes. There's no election system, I believe, in the world that is perfect. So every time somebody challenges the process, then you're able to identify gaps and you address those gaps. Can we approach also that conversation objectively? Because aside from land, which is one of the most emotive issues in this country, I find elections to be an extremely emotive issue in this country. And if we're not careful about the words we use, about the tone we use with one another, we risk plunging this country into another crisis. And we haven't even finished 20 years since the last time we had a crisis. So we need to be very careful. As citizens, as leaders, we have to be very careful.
On both sides?
On both sides.
Okay. I allowed Annabelle to finish her thought process because I need to release her. I'm actually 3 minutes late. But there's something that Mheshimiwa Fatma, so I thank you, Annabelle, for your contributions. Let me now get the thoughts of Njeri and Fatma.
Can you just let her elaborate further? Who is this leader who told people to
and I wanted,
she leaves?
Okay, Annabelle, can you, Azimio insisted that these will be peaceful demonstrations, but the point she did make is that with the wearing of the uniform, statements with going to State House, what did that, because you mentioned, you talked about
what I used.
No,
what I used
was, no, let us be specific here.
You don't need to expound.
A leader went and told people to throw stones. That is the statement that I want clarity for.
And you know, the beauty about my profession is we deal in facts. I have given an example. I have said you cannot come as a leader and say rusheni mawe. I did not say a leader came and said watu warushe mawe. That is not, it was just an example.
Oh, I'm dealing with a lawyer.
And yes, number two,
she can run out of her skin within a minute.
Number two, only the guilty run before they're chased. I didn't point a finger at anyone. Why are you getting defensive?
She just ran out of.
Why are you getting defensive?
The mediator.
I think we have a handshake here.
But Jerry, as you respond, please answer this question for me. Is it Kenya Kwanza that has led us to where we are today? Is it Kenya Kwanza that pushed Azimio to the streets? Because there has been the position that has been presented by Azimio that you made it impossible for them to prosecute these issues in Parliament. You divested them of their numbers in the National Assembly, and therefore they were unable to prosecute these matters there.
Olive, I like to be very objective and apply critical thinking in whatever reasoning that I do. And I have never said that the cost of living is not high, that the cost of fuel is not high at any given point in any of my panel discussions, whether on NTV or any other platform. And that is something that we all agree, that we need the cost of unga for someone in Kirinyaga County to go to at least 100 shillings. We need the cost of fuel to go down. But then we have people who want to ride and who want to be delusional and apply selective thinking to what they purport to be the truth. Because I always ask, and I have asked here, and maybe perhaps because my colleague Fatma is in the house, she can tell us, why didn't Raila Amolo Odinga complain or go to the streets about the cost of living when or after they had the handshake?
But Njeri, to be fair, did we not have subsidies for unga, and did we not have subsidies?
We had subsidies which were being abused. Let me finish, Fatma. We had subsidies, Olive, which were being abused. And if you recall even well, I remember that even IMF wrote to the national government about the abuse of subsidies that we had at the time. The cost of unga was still high, Olive. We had subsidies, but money was going into people's pockets. And that is why I'm asking, this fairness that we purport, you know, we want to claim that the presidential election is not fair, but we want to claim that myself and Fatma, the elections were free and fair and credible. Is it, who measures? Which parameters do we use? In that, you know, for us, it was a free, fair and credible election, but when it comes to Raila Amolo Odinga and the presidential election, it was not credible. Are we saying that we want to purport fairness to be what we believe? Is it something that we want, you know, is something that we want to pick and say, because I'm in the Kenya Kwanza side, it was free, fair and credible, because I'm in Azimio and we lost, it was not free, fair and credible. We need to have an objective conversation about what is a free, fair and credible election. The election was challenged at the Supreme Court of Kenya, which is an institution that is provided for by our constitution. They are claiming that they want the servers to be opened. In the last election, when the election was petitioned by the same parties, they asked for the servers to be open and they were given access to the servers. Why did they not seek that when they were filing this petition? They also have a chance to apply for a review. Why have they not applied for a review at the Supreme Court of Kenya? They have a chance to go to an even higher court. Why have they not gone to the East African Court? I mean, who is fooling who here? But then we won't call people to the streets because we are claiming that the cost of living is high. You're saying their numbers we were eaten into by Kenya Kwanza side. Which numbers? She is here. She's independent. She has told you that she has aligned herself with Azimio. So I think we're having these, you know, these sensational topics, and we want to run on these, to paint the Kenya Kwanza government as this tyranny that just came in, and, you know, overnight we want the cost of living to go down. And we all know, because I believe you all here as a panel, we are properly educated. We understand that the cost of living does not go overnight down magically. It is a process, and Kenya Kwanza government has put in mechanisms to ensure that we are working towards economic recovery. We have the free subsidized fertilizer program. We have launched the housing program to ensure that we are also catering for the unemployment cases in the nation. So let us have an objective conversation. It doesn't matter which side I'm on. I have already said, yes, the cost of living is high. Is it going to go down overnight? It will not.
It's 6 months since you're
all right. Let me just fund myself, because today
It's fine.
full network. Let me ask you this. I'll invite you to have the last word in this discussion before we sign off. But if this discussion, these bilateral talks, are not about a handshake, what are they about? Because I'm looking at the front page, and I had mentioned it earlier, of the Standard, and they say, experts say, even if the contents of the server show otherwise, there is no overturning of the results. The legal process dictates we go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court endorsed the results, effectively said, you know, whatever irregularities there were, they did not merit the annulment of the results. So what does that leave?
Let me tell you, these are lawyers. I think you start from a lawyer, you graduate to get to a judge, magistrate, supreme, whatever it is. There are words that they know in their business, it's never used. There are words, me as a politician, I know on a podium, those are the words expected that I should be using. The words that the Supreme Court used, those kind of hot air and what, you know, it was like a nursery school poem, you know, being read by some little beautiful girl, reading a poem written by a teacher that she doesn't even understand. And Raila said it quite well. I respect, but I do not agree. If I respect your opinion, but I do not agree with you, I don't have to come back for advice from you. And that is why Raila sees no reason to go back to the same people and look for any other alternative. Going back to Maandamano, for your information, it is not about, when Raila said, I stop it and I'm willing to speak. If you can see what happened in Migori, I went back to cool the Wananchi and told them, please. They said, no, let Raila sit with them. We are not interested. We are going our way. We must push this government to open that. We just want to know that we lost. And how many votes did we get? We lost. Raila is just looking for a closure. A closure, fine. You're saying I lost, no problem, open the server. I get my 1 vote. I say, alhamdulillah, thanks to God, I lost. And now I have realized Kenyans don't want me. I may run again, I may not run again. He wants a closure. And a closure is important in every event, including a wedding. When you say, and as anybody else who might want to stop this wedding, and you look back, why do you look back and you know this is the man of your life? You look back to say, okay, is there anybody? Oh, closure. This man is mine. That is what Azimio is looking for. But again, she's saying that cost of living cannot come down overnight. 6 months, sweetheart, 6 months since these people were elected. And the man with the mantle said it, a Christian who goes to church every Sunday. The moment I put the Bible down, the cost of living will go down. Did he not know that he needs more than 5 years to bring the cost of living down? He knew very well. So I am saying you are not living what you said, and Wananchi are watching. And I tell you, if you know that you're lying, you repeat your statements every day. When you say you're honest, you say, my name is Fatuma Zainab Mohammed, full stop. But when I hold the mic every day, by the way, my name is Fatuma, tomorrow, my name is still Fatuma. Then it means there's something about this name. These names might not be yours. So Kenya Kwanza government should be able to bring the cost of living down as they put the Bible down as they had promised. Okay. But again, they're saying that we have a plan. We have a plan is the new talk. We have a plan. Now, as you're having a plan, let me tell you, Njeri, Atieno, they're not waiting for the plan. They're sleeping hungry. Their children are dying out of hunger, and you're still talking of a plan. You can leave everything and put food on their table. As much as you're saying you don't have money, but you're hiring more employees. You're buying new cars. It is the priority. That's why I'm telling you, cost of living is just a matter of priority. Okay. You're prioritizing the minors and leaving the majors. cost of unga just needs a microphone for Ruto to say it is down by even 50 bob. Even for free he can give, because there are things that he can say these are not relevant now. This is more relevant. Food is important.
Okay.
And if you're telling us to wait for food for fertilizer, you are talking of, I went home and I was saying, no wait, I wanted to give goodies. And I said, I have mahindi and I have fertilizer. And I thought if I give them fertilizer, in 3 months they'll be able to take. They told me, Fatuma, are you mad? You're giving me fertilizer to go and cook for my children who are dying at home. Give me unga. That is the government we're talking about, giving fertilizer. I think mahindi takes 4 months, 5 months. I'm not a farmer, I don't know. So the mwananchi will be sitting and saying, Mungu saidia, hii fertilizer Ruto ameleta ni mzuri, hii mahindi imefika hapa, lakini watoto wanakufa njaa. Craziness.
All right. So unfortunately, I have to wind up the conversation there. I'm sorry for rushing you. The next time you come, you're going fast. I have your time debt. In studio, we've had Fatma Zainab Mohammed, full network, woman rep Migori, Jerry Minor, woman rep Kirinyaga, Annabelle Njoki. Thank you so much, Annabelle, for extending the amount of time you're planning to spend also to listen to what Fatma had to say in response, and Jerry as well. And Wanjiro Nguhi, 8 million strong, Fubwa, program manager, Baraza Media Lab. Have yourself a good morning. My name is Olive Burrows. Your world with Winnie Lubembe coming up.